I really wanted to tell people about the Storytelling Festival. So if you're watching, the Florida Storytelling Association Festival will be in Mount Dora on January 23rd through 26th. You can go all the days, you can go one of the days, you can go one evening to a concert, and they have great tellers and so many interesting storytellers from around the country. So they have national tellers and also from around Florida. And Kathy and David will be there. I won't be because I'm doing a play that weekend here in St. Augustine. I want to put these down. Okay. The play is called Shrink Wrap. It's also on the next weekend, so you don't have to miss it. It's a social satire. So it does have some, it's in a sense about this national disease that we have developed that we're calling political anxiety disorder. It's a psychological problem we're having here and all around the globe, actually. So, aside from that, I have a little bit of a story. You were all at Tale Teller's Telebration, at which I tried to tell a story about my sister, but I left some of it out. And I want to tell you the part I left out, because I titled the story, The Fudge Queen of Garnett Avenue, which was my sister, Alice Elizabeth Kaler. But I forgot when I was telling the story to mention the fudge, which was memorable, really memorable. Do you like fudge?
Love it.
Oh, my sister made the best fudge, and she might have been 15 when she was making this fudge. My mother worked a couple of jobs. My mother was a teacher. In those days, a single mother needed a little more income than that. In those days, right? Doesn't happen now. It does happen, actually. I know teachers who have more than one job now, too. Yeah, even more than two sometimes. But so my mother had a second job, but she also took classes. And she took classes in Gainesville because that was the nearest place that she could go, that the teachers in St. Augustine could go if they already had a degree to work on a master's or a doctorate. And so there were carloads of teachers going over there to take classes. And one of the things that Mother did was type papers, because this was in the 50s, so it was long before computers. But my mother was a great typist. I mean, she could really type fast, unlike me, and correctly, unlike me. But so she used a portable typewriter. She would be typing papers on the way to class. Okay, a short story about Mother, since we're the only ones here. Whenever they would hit a bump, my mother would say, "Bastard." That was her curse word, since she grew up in rural Illinois, and that's what people said, bastard. So one night, the principal was going to go with them on this trip, and my mother was warned not to use any curse words, not to say that. So it was fine. Virginia Cummings was a maiden lady, and everybody thought she was very straight-laced, so she was riding along. Maybe I shouldn't have used her name, but anyway. Of course, they came to a bump, and they bumped. The typing was interrupted. Did my mother say anything? No, she didn't say it. But the driver of the car said, "Bastard." Somebody had to say it, you know. So, one of the things that my mother did, besides, take care of my sister and me, I was talking about my sister, she told us stories like that about what happened to her, which is why I remember them. But back to my sister, who made the best fudge in the world, I'm sure. If you're 10 years old and you love fudge, and your sister can actually make it and then give you half the pan, it's heaven, And my sister was a great cook. The first thing she learned how to make was baking powder biscuits. in home ec at school. So she made biscuits for us for family dinners a lot. The fudge she made when we were home alone. This was after we had Swanson chicken pot pies, that we each had one of those. This was the plan. And then we had half of a cherry pie, a small one, you know, like the quote, individual serving. So we'd have half of that. And then Elizabeth would make fudge, which was just fantastic. Later, she led me into other cooking. Like she had a little paperback book called French Country Cooking. And we cooked beef bourguignon, which was melt in your mouth, great. And she cooked salmon soufflés, and we just went on from there. I still use her Middle Eastern cookbook. My sister also read a lot. So besides reading cookbooks and cooking from them, she read all the time. And she would tell me what she had read. Now, before I mentioned Elizabeth was 5 years older than I was, so she already knew everything. By the time I had a question to ask, she knew the answer. And she read books and then she told me about them. I know I've probably gone on too long now. I know I would never have read The Wall. Do you remember The Wall? I don't know if you know it. You two might. It was about the Warsaw Ghetto. And so it was very popular in the late 50s. And Elizabeth read it, told me about it, so I read it. You know, it was just went on like that. She was always reading. And as I mentioned before, when my sister was sick, she had ovarian cancer, and she really came home when there was nothing else that could be done in Cincinnati, where she was living at the time. You know, great doctors, but they just, you know, didn't catch it in time. And she was here with hospice, and she was reading, and so I was, you know, thinking, why is she reading? She has so little time. I probably wasn't really thinking she had little time. I was thinking she could still get well. That's what I was thinking. You know, I was just totally in denial. But then I noted, I thought, of course she's reading. She's always reading. And she was reading the biography of Golda Meir. And the thing about reading is that you can go to another world, which is where my sister lived most of the time and continued, because she was on her way to another world at that point. So, thanks for letting me tell you about the fudge part of the story.